We discriminate all the time, all of us. We choose who we want to be friends with, we decide with whom we want to have a relationship, and so on. We should have freedom of association. If you own a home, you have a say as to who you want to invite into your house and who you don't. That's your call. There are no anti-discrimination laws that you have to follow when it comes to your personal property. I feel it should be the same with privately owned businesses and organizations. If you own a business, you should have the right to discriminate if you so choose. Now, just because I feel this should be a legal right, doesn't mean that I'm encouraging businesses to just start discriminating. It's all about freedom here. In this case, the freedom of business owners to run their business as they please. I may not like what someone says or does or how they run their business, but I respect their right to do and say these things as long as they don't infringe upon my rights. Some people act as though many businesses would start discriminating against certain groups of people as soon as they have the legal right to do so. But I don't think that would be in their best interest. The primary concern of any business is to make a profit, and as long as your Federal Reserve notes are green just like everybody else's, then that should really be all they care about. There really is no incentive for them to exclude certain groups of people, as it will only decrease revenue for them. Besides, even if there isn't anything to legally prevent a business from discriminating against, let's say, women or black people, that business would likely have a bad reputation if they chose to discriminate against them. People would choose not to do business with them, and before too long, they won't be able to stay in business anyway. So we don't need government to stop a business from discriminating. The free market can do that just fine. Now the thing is, there is an exception to this. We already have businesses that discriminate, and they discriminate against men. This is the only acceptable form of discrimination. Now I may be for a business's legal right to discriminate, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to like it if they do. Just like they have the right to discriminate, I have the right to simply not do business with them. I don't go to bars or clubs anyway. I don't drink, and I hate the loud music there. So discriminatory events such as Ladies' Night don't really affect me anyway. When I made that Ladies' Night video, I've gotten several comments about why bars and clubs would want to have a Ladies' Night, that it supposedly makes economic sense. But that isn't the point. Like I said before, businesses should have the right to do something like that for whatever reason they want, even if it didn't make economic sense for them. If a Ladies' Night is something they just want to have, then they should be able to do that. What I'm trying to get across is that there is always a justification for discrimination against men, and such discrimination is usually brushed off as not being a big deal. But if the very same justification was used to discriminate against women, then that would be sexist. That's my main point. If a business found that it made economic sense for them to charge women more or give only men freebies and discounts, then that would be sexist. A common justification for giving women free drinks is that the drinks attract the women and the women attract the men. But how do you account for other discounts that only women get for things like oil changes, for example? Does the same reasoning apply for that? Is it common for men to want to meet women at a Jiffy Lube? I mean, what's the story on that? The next thing I want to talk about is insurance. If you're a man, you will automatically be charged more for car insurance than a woman, even if you're the same age, have the same policy, same coverage, same discounts, have the same kind of car, etc. Just for being male. Again, there are explanations for why this is and why this should be, but once again, this isn't the point. Because what would happen if the car insurance companies decided to start charging women more because they now have statistics that say that more women on average talk on a cell phone while driving, and this has caused more women to get into accidents? Many feminists would say, this isn't fair. What if a woman doesn't even have a cell phone? Why should she be charged more than a man who is always on his cell phone? If this isn't patriarchy, I don't know what is. Once you start charging women more, the statistics no longer matter. Average statistics are a perfect excuse to discriminate against all men, but not to discriminate against women. Don't believe me? Look at healthcare. It's illegal to charge women more for health insurance. It doesn't matter if the average woman visits her doctor more than the average man. So if it's wrong to charge women more based on average statistics, why should it be okay to do that to men? Or, if it's okay to charge men more for insurance based on average statistics, then it should also be okay to do the same to women. But as always, we have yet another double standard that favors women. So to sum up, All men paying more for car insurance because the statistics justify it? Perfectly okay, understandable. This isn't discrimination at all. Why are you making a mountain out of a molehill? All women paying more for health insurance because the statistics justify it? Oh, this is discrimination, pure and simple. We need government to put an end to this injustice. It is more expensive to be a man. Women are the only sex that get freebies and discounts just for being women, while men, on the other hand, have to pay more for things like car insurance simply for being men. But God forbid men on average earn a little more money to pay for their additional expenses, then it must be discrimination, and we can't have that. When feminists complain about the wage gap, which is not based on gender, by the way, they fail to take into consideration the spending obligation gap, which is based on gender. Yes, it's okay that all men have to pay more for stuff, but we can't have men on average making a little more than women do on average. The typical feminist who comments on my videos sees nothing wrong with charging all men more for car insurance, but they'll complain about the wage gap. But here's the thing. With car insurance, men are being treated as members of a group rather than individuals. Every man is lumped into one category. If Bill is a better driver and less of a risk than the average man, it doesn't matter. He will be charged more for being a man. Get a load of this article called "Are Car Insurers Unfair to Men?" They explain why men are charged more for insurance, and of course they don't blame the insurance companies, but rather all men. But the really insulting part is the section, "What's a guy to do?" Marshall says guys should follow women's lead and buckle their seatbelts. So I guess only women buckle up, but men never do? That's what this article is implying. That's also what commercials these days seem to imply as well. If men want to get the same car insurance rates as women, they'll have to change their driving. Oh yeah, that's great. Well, I can't control what other men do. I can only control what I do. So let's say Bill changed his driving habits, or maybe he was already a great driver to begin with. He is still going to be charged more than a woman, even when all other circumstances are the same. When it comes to car insurance, all men have to pay more because of an average statistic. But in the eyes of many feminists, this is perfectly fine. But it isn't like that with wages. If Bill gets a job, he doesn't get paid based on how many hours the average man works. He gets paid based on how many hours he works. His employer wouldn't say, "Hey Bill, since you're a man, I'm going to pay you a higher wage because on average, men work more hours." That would be absurd, right? Why should it matter what the average man did? It should only matter what he did. Yet that same reasoning works fine when charging men more for insurance. Wages are a completely individual thing, as they should be. And being that it is more expensive to be a man, it makes sense why more men would choose to work longer hours and choose the less desirable but more lucrative jobs. But it's these things that contribute to the so-called wage gap, not discrimination against women. Going back to that article, it said that if men want to get the same car insurance rates as women, they'll have to change their driving. The thing is, that's not true. It doesn't matter how the individual man changes his driving habits. Simply being a man means you're going to be paying more no matter what you do. However, this advice does work when it comes to wages. We can give this advice to anybody who complains about the wage gap. Just change the wording to, if women want to get paid as much as the average man, they have to follow men's lead and change their choices with respect to their job. They have more control over the job they take, how many hours they work, how much time they decide to take off, and so on. While no individual man can control the driving habits of other men, one individual woman can make several job choices that can give her a higher wage. In other words, since wages are based on individual merits such as productivity, hours worked, experience, education, etc., there is more control over what you can do to get a higher wage. Gender is not a factor. And while it is true that there are certain things that anybody can do to lower their insurance premiums, the fact that men will get charged more just for being male is something that one individual man won't be able to change. Gender is a factor. Yet ironically, all men being charged more for something just for being men is not considered discrimination. But whenever one man makes more than a woman, then it is considered discrimination, even though he's only making more because of his individual choices, not because he's male. And not only that, but there are jobs out there where women make more than men. Feminists, just let the average man keep the, quote, extra 20 cents per dollar that he earned, and consider the fact that being a man, he's going to need to spend that money for things that women can either get for free or at a discount. Or should men just be charged more but never be allowed to earn more?